During the talk, everyone, please welcome to the stage the Thunderfoot team.
Hi. Hello. Wow. It's great to be back in person with everybody. So we are Thunderfoot. We're a global creative agency based in Basque Country and New York City. Though we do a lot of work in the consumer space, B2C, we're here to talk about our work specifically in a B2B context, business to business. So we're going to share a couple of case studies about sites that we've built that work for real companies, and we're also going to share some of our design principles, the way that we approach this work. So who are we? At the core, we're a group of 4 really good friends. We worked together remotely across the Atlantic Ocean before that was a fashionable thing to do, and sometimes we get to hang out in really cool places like this, EssilorLuxottica, outside of Bilbao. This is Remy, my fellow managing partner, MedShare, our creative director, Andres, our director of technology, longboard surfer, and me. I'm realizing I need a haircut. So before we get into the principles that govern our work in the B2B space, I thought I would start with a story. It's a little early to think about going to the bar, but we are in Amsterdam, so why not start early? Imagine 2 businesses walk into a bar, and they're trying to decide on a beer vendor. How do they approach this? Well, they start out comparing the menu of the bar to the menus of 4 other bars, their competitors. They issue an RFP, and the 5 bars submit their proposals. Eventually, they assemble a subcommittee of 7 VPs that are going to help make the decision on who's the best beer vendor. The subcommittee compares the unit pricing from each bar and assesses their proposals. You can start to see where this is going. They call the references from all the bartenders, and at the end, they ask for a discount. Okay, what if we sign up for 2 years? What's the best you can do? And you can see that the process of buying in a business context is complicated. This slide is a mess. Finally, they decide on a beer buying as a service provider, and they move forward with the one of their choosing. So, how a business buys is way different from how a consumer buys. In the world of e-commerce, transactions can happen in a matter of minutes. Consumers add a product to the cart and check out. In the world of B2B, it's a little more complex. The process can take months, years at times. There are hurdles at every step of the way. The whole process is more complicated, but we can design for that. I'm going to hand it over to Remy, who's going to walk through our 3 principles for how to B2B the best.
You heard Cooper just talk a lot about some of the work that we've done for B2B companies. And over the years, like any agency, we've made plenty of mistakes, broken plenty of things, but we've also learned a lot. And in that time, we've tried to distill some of those learnings down into these 3 principles that Cooper just mentioned. So first, I'm going to talk about what it means to design to exceed expectations. MedShare will then explain how to find the balance of UX art and science. And finally, Andres will tell us what it means to design entire purchaser experiences and not just websites. But first, designing to exceed expectations. It might sound obvious, but businesses are made up of people. And what's true about almost all people in 2022 is that they're expert digital consumers. They own iPhones, they watch Netflix, they have Gmail addresses, and in general, they experience the best of the best when it comes to content, design, and UX every day. With that experience come really, really high expectations. And a challenge for us, when we're doing marketing and design work for B2B companies, is that these same people are bringing those same high expectations to work, regardless of who your company is or what you're selling. So everyone's an expert when it comes to design. They know what good is. And design just has a way of either impressing them or falling short. Put another way, no one's ever come to your website and said, this site perfectly meets my expectations. So, we have a B2B client with Netflix-level standards. That sounds challenging. But it's actually an opportunity to succeed where your competition has failed, to leave your users thinking, that company is exactly what I'm looking for. These same people want to look to you as a leader in your space. So ask yourself, is my site's design, and not just my content, really communicating that leadership? It's a fashion show. Do you look better than your competition? Do you look way better? Are you winning Project Runway? And when it comes to the content on the page, ask yourself, do we look like experts? Are we clearly communicating that expertise through the way we talk about our products or services? And do we make our product or service look awesome? On that last point, you need to really bring the idea of working with you to life. Screenshots and paragraphs of text on their own are boring and they're opaque. Instead, idealize the experience of using your product or service and communicate that to your end customer. Visualize the idea of solving their problem and communicate that solution. Of course, getting to all these ideas I just talked about and building a website are pretty far apart, and there's a lot of work to do to get there. Here to talk about taking a balanced approach to that work is MedShare with our second principle.
All right, so our second principle is finding the balance of UX art and science. If you're building a website for a museum or a rock band or a fashion brand, you should probably be putting forward your most artistic UX. But in the world of B2B, you have to be careful not to push the art of design too far to a point that is no longer usable or easy to understand for your audience. It's not just about designing something that's impressive, it's also about designing something that's functional. So let's see an example. We see this website of an agency that looks really cool, has a lot of visual impact. You can see that it's pretty cutting edge and impressive. But for most B2B audiences, this could be perceived as overwhelming and confusing. There's too much visual information, there's not a clear takeaway as soon as you land, and there's not a clear navigation pattern. At its best, this is a really cool reel that is probably helping them sell tons of design work. But at its worst, it could be perceived as confusing. On the flip side, we see a lot of our clients, especially in tech, become completely obsessed about making data-driven decisions purely. You'd almost think that they check Google Analytics when they are deciding what for dinner. They assemble armies of marketing analysts, they conduct relentless A/B testing, and end up with results like this one from Amazon Business Search, that looks designed more for robots rather than human beings. So before you go off and do something like this, which is pretty much all over the place, you have the previous price, the 10% off, the we have one left, the reserve. You see like all the tests that are happening right here. You should really be thinking about how you can strike a balance of UX art and science, because that's what ultimately will make your user journey enjoyable. A balance of form and function will help users think and feel that they've come to the right place and they will find what they are looking for in your product or solution. And finding that balance starts with principled design decisions. We have to think, what principles do we have in mind when making those decisions on behalf of our clients? We do tons of those every day. Can we translate our clients' brand values into our design decisions? Can we build something that exceeds their expectations, as Remy was pointing out, without making them feel overwhelmed? Can we anticipate their questions and provide compelling answers through structure, layout, copywriting, visuals, content? Can we make them feel comfortable and trust us while they're making a big decision that will probably have a huge impact on their organization? Can we make them feel that they've come to the right place? Yes, we can. Claro que sí. Healthcare is a really good example of that. Healthcare is a US company. They are a client of ours. And what they do is connect patients with doctors, hospitals, and healthcare providers every day. They literally serve millions of consumers every month. They also have a B2B product where they offer advertising and media promotion solutions to pharma companies and health group practices. But until they hired us, they didn't have a website to reflect that part of the business, the B2B. So considering that our audience was mainly middle-aged doctors and pharma executives who are not the most tech-savvy bunch, we applied our UX art through colors, patterns, and subtle but engaging interactions and animations to help them stand out from their competition. And we balanced that out with our UX science through a thoughtful structure, compelling but straightforward call to actions, and an integration with a marketing automation tool that, as Andres will explain in a minute, is an essential part of any B2B business. It's pretty early since the launch, but in just 90 days, we are able to more than double the leads generated for Health Grades B2B. So we feel that the results speak for themselves. Now I will leave it to Andres to talk about the third principle.
So you heard us talk a lot about B2B businesses, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. As designers, we should ask ourselves, how can we help a business attract new customers? And more specifically, how can we inject the brand values into the customer journey? Let's dive in. Look, if you look at this iceberg, it looks small and simple, but it's enormous beneath the surface. Just like this iceberg, beneath the surface of your website, there is this whole world that is not visible if you're not a lead. And that world, it's equally important and can be designed. It could be from an ad creative, landing pages, conversion actions, nurture emails, sales materials, and even proposals and contracts. So all of that tells a consistent branded story that speaks through the values of your to the values of your organization. Next slide. It is also important for design teams to be ambitious about what could be designed and the impact that they might have on marketing results. Maybe designing an email template or a social graphic or even a Zoom background for a salesperson seems less cool than designing the homepage of, let's say, Airbnb. But it's not. Because our experience with this client has proven that a shiny front end is just only the starting point. In fact, full funnel marketing is harder. You really have to zoom in on who is your ideal buyer and who isn't. You need to understand your audience so you can anticipate their questions and customize their post-conversion journey. Forget to do that, but let's keep it. And as Cooper said, lead journey through the B2B marketing funnel, it's long. It takes time. It might take months or even years. So you need to set up the right infrastructure and the marketing automations so you keep your leads engaged on the long run. And you can have tactics like the one you see on the screen, so you can provide a personalized experience that drives leads ultimately to a purchase. So to recap, if you really want to make your sales team happy, you need to treat your leads right. That means that you should anticipate their questions, reaching out to them constantly, and serving them with fresh content. And of course, this is hard to make it all happen. But what I learned from working on an integrated agency as Thunderfoot is that marketing, design, and sales team needs to work tightly together in order to achieve truly great results for B2B audiences. Sorry, B2B businesses. Now, Remy will explain how we do it at Thunderfoot. Sorry, I stopped here.
Thanks, Andres. You've heard us talk a lot about the theory and the principles of B2B design and marketing work, but I'd like to end our talk today with a couple case studies that I think really ground those in actual deliverables and results we've driven for clients. You might recognize this from earlier in the deck. I shared an example of their work. This is LeadSource. They're a small consulting company that helps other companies implement Salesforce products. Pretty classic B2B use case. They came to Thunderfoot looking for help with a brand and a website. What I think our team did such a good job of is really bringing those three principles to life and embodying them in a way that ultimately drove great results. We humanized their services in a manner that made them seem like trustworthy industry leaders. We struck the balance of UX art and science, combining original artwork with intuitive site architecture and clean copy. And we built a fully branded purchaser experience by integrating a marketing automation tool that enabled the sort of activities Anders is talking about, whether that's lead nurture, or marketing emails, or even retargeting campaigns. This next project has a special place in our hearts at Thunderfoot. You'll see why in a second. In partnership with the Paul G. Allen Foundation, the Canadian government, and others, the United Nations wanted to dedicate a fund to saving the coral reefs. Although plenty of consumers care about ocean conservation, I'm sure all of us here do, this particular project was targeting other organizations, government agencies, foundations, nonprofits, anyone who could help with advocacy efforts or potentially contribute more to the fund. We had the privilege of building the brand and the website that, of course, communicated the visceral plight of dying ecosystems and the urgency to do something about it. But what I thought was even more impressive was that we were able to communicate the realities of the complex financial mechanisms driving the fund and ultimately making an impact. To be honest, I truly can't think of a better example of our work at Thunderfoot that embodies the belief that sits at the core of our business, which is that business doesn't have to mean boring. Whether it's the UN or a company just getting off the ground, I'm so proud of the job our team always does to bring those values and those businesses to life. Some of us are up here on stage, others are out in the crowd, many more are at home in the US and Spain. And whether it's this week or sometime in the future, we'd all love to talk to you about all things B2B, design, and marketing. Thank you.